Well, Steven, I think we both agreed that the Warriors weren't going to go far this postseason, but nevertheless, this sucks, huh?
Yeah, just a little bit. It's weird not watching Warrior basketball into May. I know they've missed 3 of the 5 last true playoffs, but still weird. And this one felt different. You know, obviously we saw them lose to the Grizzlies and we saw them lose to the Lakers, but this one felt very different just because it really does feel like this is signaling the end of what we know of the Warriors dynasty. Actually, I don't know. Maybe that's been signaled for a while, but we can get into that a little bit later. Just I felt like I was on KCBS today. I felt like I was legitimately like eulogizing somebody, you know? Like I was talking about like a death.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of felt that way today a little bit, but kind of
I
one
was
that
a
we were.
equalizer.
Oh, you googly? I bet you didn't know what a you googly was. They were all my brothers. And I don't mean like literally. I mean it the way black people do. Great line from Zoolander. Just your opinion, man. Stephen Langford. This is the post-mortem Warriors show. A little earlier than we anticipated, but honestly, I was surprised by the outcome last night.
Yeah.
But I I was surprised by the outcome, but I knew that eventually it was going to run out because whether they were going to go to with the Pelicans losing, I didn't think they were going to beat the Pelicans, and that's a whole other story with Zion out right now. But I don't know. It's just kind of weird. It's definitely weird this time of the year to be done with Warriors games. But with the way the season went and how everyone was kind of, you know, just not playing their best. I mean, we'll get into Clay 0 for 10 last night. Yeah, it does kind of feel like the end a little bit. And I know that Steve Kerr said what he said in the post game. He went on both radio stations today and said he thinks there's a lot of basketball still to be played by Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green and Chris Paul. But I don't think it's championship winning basketball.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing they got to figure out this offseason is what can they do to keep winning? And even Steve Kerr said today, like, are we trying to, do the long game here while we're trying to rebuild and go younger, but also at the same time still win? That was a 2 timeline approach pretty much. And they got lucky winning in, 2022. So I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for the Warriors, but last night, I mean, God, they got their ass kicked, no doubt. But the game itself was surprising. Just in a way, it was, but also wasn't. If you kind of understand what I'm saying.
I guess I do. I just didn't expect it to be that lopsided. That's where I'm at. Like I knew the Kings were going to come out firing. I knew they weren't just going to lay down just because Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter has been out for a long time. But the fact that two pretty critical players are out, like I knew they weren't just going to lay down. And Mike Brown was going to have a game plan, and his game plan worked to perfection. And it was just like it was just a cycle of the Warriors getting outcoached, outplayed, eventually outscored. Like it was all of that. I didn't think that I thought it was going to be a close game. I thought it was going to be like a lot of the regular season. And even when the Warriors were inching closer, with Kuminga, Podziemski, Moses Moody, I think they cut the lead to 4. And then eventually they blew the game open again in the second half because Steve Kerr, I don't think he wanted to leave those guys in there because had they lost, I don't think he wants to die on the hill of, I'm going to play my younger players without putting my stars in the game, even though the younger players, like, that's where something's wrong. As you're scrolling through social media, you kind of get the trend of how things are going. And the way that people were tweeting about the game is the exact way people tweet about a regular season game. Like, you're not supposed to have Moody, Podziemski, and Kuminga keeping you in it. That's not how it's supposed to go.
Right.
It's like it's not supposed to be those three. It's great that they did. It shows growth. It shows that maybe Steve Kerr should have played Moses Moody a little bit more and found him consistent minutes. Brandon Pajemski's the real deal, and Jonathan Kuminga doing Jonathan Kuminga things. But at the end of the day, the latter of the two, Pajemski and Kuminga, they made some boneheaded plays, and that's not what you want. That's not what you wanted a do or die game. What you wanted a do or die game is that Steph's going nuclear, Clay's going off, or Steph is struggling scoring, but Clay's doing just fine, and just wait till Curry heats up, then they'll really get into it. The point of the game for me where I really kind of knew they were outmatched was the sequence where they finally switched Curry onto Sabonis. It was one-on-one, finally, on the left wing, and we've seen Curry do this just thousands of times, really. Well, okay, thousands is a little bit hyperbolic. Hundreds of times. We have seen him take on a big man, hit the step back, hit the three, and then the Warriors get back into it and they get a little bit of momentum. But what you saw in the sequence was they switched on to Sabonis, which is what they wanted to do. They were trapping Curry all night. They finally got the one-on-one. He hits the step back. It goes off the back of the rim. There's a 50-50 ball. It's a long rebound. It goes to the Kings. And then Sabonis runs the floor. All he's got is Curry on him. He gets the easy layup, and the crowd goes nuts. And at that point, it just felt like, oh yeah, something's different here. Something's off. Like, how many times have we seen that where the Warriors don't look like the Warriors, but Steph Curry gets them back in it with a three, and they start to feel it a little bit. Yeah, we didn't see that last night.
No, not at all. I think the old guys, the young guys, everybody was off last night. And I thought the Kings Arena, Golden One Center, was going to be crazy, and it was. It kind of felt like last year, where the Kings got on the Warriors fast, and then the Warriors crept back in, but they lost the first two games. And I do believe if this was a 7-game series, the Warriors would have figured out how to beat this Kings team. But it was a do-or-die game, and they lost. And it was a lot of lazy turnovers. The Warriors have always been turnover-prone, but last night was bad. Like, how many times did Steph just give up the ball and just easy, like, interceptions? Guys catching basketballs and just running for the hoop. Keegan-Michael Murray had is that his name, Keegan-Michael Murray?
It's just Keegan Murray.
Okay, sorry. I was
you totally mixed up Keegan-Michael Key.
No, because earlier today, fucking Jacob was calling him Keegan-Michael Murray, and I was like, no, that's not his name. So now I got screwed up. Keegan
Jacob
Murray
was calling him that, huh?
He was.
That's the most on-brand thing that's ever Jacobed. Him calling Keegan Murray Keegan-Michael Murray.
Yes, he did. But he did a great job defensively on Steph Curry last night. Who was the guy that filled in last night for Malik Monk? The guy was shooting all the threes.
Keon Ellis
had a great game. There's always somebody. There's always some scrappy guy off the bench that does the Warriors in playoff time. Last year was Lonnie Walker for the Lakers.
Yep.
And yeah, it just always happens. Dellavedova years ago, but
Eric Gordon was always that guy with the Rockets.
Yeah, but Eric Gordon's actually a good player.
Well, I think the rest of those guys are these guys aren't good. What's to say these guys aren't good players?
Ellis could become a great player. It's very early in his career, so he came out of nowhere. Lonnie Walker was kind of like a journeyman, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And by the way, Jacob Violante. It's a guy we used to work with back in the day who works at KBR now. Everybody relax in the chat. But yeah, dude, I just thought that the Warriors just got outplayed, just got outmatched. De'Aaron Fox had a great game. Sabonis had a great game. Everybody was just off. Draymond did not play well defensively. Steph kind of looked gassed. And yeah, Clay was awful. No doubt about it. He was 0 for 10. And a lot will be made of his future. And we'll get into what he said today. But it's 2 years in a row now where, we know him as Game 6 Clay. And in the past, he was clutch. But the last 2 seasons, he looked terrible against the Lakers. And he looked very bad last night.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, man, it was just a bad performance all the way around. The injuries to Herter and Monk didn't even come into play. The Kings are just a much younger team than the Warriors, and they look spry, and the Warriors look slow. And even the young guys, I mean, Kaminga played fine, but there's moments where I thought like he wasn't up to the moment. Trace Jackson Davis was yanked after 11 minutes. I mean, not to say I told you so because it didn't really matter in the end, but Kevon Looney did end up playing a lot, but it didn't matter. They were overmatched. They looked like an old team last night. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and they had everything that the Warriors want right now. They have a young player in Keegan Murray who's just in his second year, and he was a 4th overall pick in the draft, and he puts up 32 points and 8 threes. That's what the Warriors need, is another bona fide scorer. They don't really have that. I thought Jonathan Kuminga was going to be that guy, but he, again, still struggled to find minutes. They need something else other than Steph Curry. We forgot about De'Aaron Fox. We just completely omitted him from the conversation for whatever reason. De'Aaron Fox is a superstar, arguably a top 10 player in the NBA. I mean, top 15, if you're probably asking a lot of people if you want to be more sure about it. And Sabonis didn't look scared. You know, normally they have Sabonis rattled. And I know that was a talking point on the broadcast, was that the Warriors normally make him look pedestrian, but he looked pretty damn good last night. Like the Kings had the upper hand in every way. And Klay Thompson, with Klay, you said, I know we're going to talk about what he said later, but he said something today where he's like, it's just another game. Like I just had a bad game. That's what I chalk it up to. To me, and again, like it feels like anytime we say something critical of Klay, that means we're like disrespecting every single thing that he's done in Warriors history. No, I'm not doing that. I appreciate everything that he's done. He's him and Steph Curry are the greatest 3-point shooters the game's ever seen. Like the greatest duo in that term, in that stretch. Like Mark Jackson was right. But
yeah,
with him saying it was just a bad game, like, no, he was in his own head. Like you don't have a game like that where you miss all 10 shots. He was rushing everything. He went away from whatever was making him special over these last 40 games, really, where the Warriors were 27-12, which was a crazy number, just so they can get the 10th seed. He looked like a completely different player, and he looked like that Klay that we saw this year that was in his own head. The one who just wasn't playing free, who wasn't playing with an open mind. He was just thinking way too much and rushing everything. It's not to say he was the only one, but good God, they needed a little bit of production out of him. And I was talking to Steiny in the kitchen, and he had the stat in the last 3 elimination games. If you include the 0 for 10, he's 7 for 48 in their last 3 elimination games. And it's not even just the last 3 elimination games. We all know the meme. We know the meme that made the rounds on social media when he only went 1 for 8 in the finals, and he's sitting down after they won the championship, and he's smiling on the bench. He's got his arm up on the seat, relaxed, and the caption was, "When you do nothing in the group project and you still get an A." Like, yeah. Game 6 Klay has kind of made us forget that. Well, Game 6s he's great, but sometimes in these elimination games he kind of falls flat, and he did it in the worst way. Like I couldn't imagine a worse way for him to do it. And it's not a knock on anything he's done in the Warriors' career, but it's just a fact. And I have a hard time believing that it was just another bad game.
What was Steiny doing in the kitchen today?
He was just preparing for the show. Sometimes he goes, whenever the salespeople are on the floor, that's when Steiny and Guru go to the kitchen. And you could kind of, it's an open space. So like the kitchen leads into KCBS, and sometimes even when I'm all the way back at my little sports desk in the corner, I can hear them at the kitchen just going off about something. You know?
that actually might be a good podcast. Steiny in the kitchen. Somebody's in the kitchen with Steinmetz, and he's just like, "Hey, what's going on? I'm making a souffle."
You'll get that like once a week. And the other days it'll be a voiceless podcast. It'll just be,
Fair enough. Yeah, dude. Yeah. I mean, for Klay to not trivialize it, but to just kind of, I mean, he has to. That's just his way of going on to the next thing. He was definitely in his own head last night, and Steph just looked tired. They rested him against the Jazz for the last game, but it seemed like he was carrying a load the end of the regular season, and they just look tired, and it's fitting. I think it is fitting they lost to the Kings. Um, Kind of poetic justice for what happened a year ago, because you can make the argument that the Warriors stole that series. Steph Curry scoring 50 in the game 7 in their building, and they got revenge. And it's not just the King. I mean, like, yeah, it's the Kings fans. There's always been the Northern California rivalry between the two of just who's got the shittier team. And now, the Warriors had their success and the Kings are trying to get to that level. And they always try to hire, a Warriors retread coach, whether it was Eric Musselman or Keith Smart, um, and or Gary St. Jean. And then, like, Mike Brown gets revenge. And I mean, the biggest one was Harrison Barnes last night. Harrison Barnes had a great game, and he's always been looking to get back at the Warriors. Even JaVale McGee. I forgot that JaVale McGee was on the Kings. The closing seconds, he scores a point. I'm like, God, he scored more than Clay last night? Jesus.
Well, everyone scored more than Clay last night.
That's
you
true.
and I scored more than Clay last night sitting on the couch.
Just the same as Clay.
Yeah.
Didn't do any better, but yeah, man, I think that I don't know what they were going to do this postseason. Now, like, if we're going back to the old Warriors, my expectations were they win last night, they beat the Lakers, and they take on the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first round. And because they're so young and the Warriors are so experienced, they beat them. That was my expectations. But looking back on it now, the Warriors just can't compete with the younger teams. Now maybe in a 7-game series they can figure things out, but I just think that they're past their prime, and I do think that we got to talk about the future and how last night may have been the end of their dynastic run of the big three of Clay, Steph, and Dre. And I don't know what the future holds. I think that they got to make a lot of changes this offseason. I don't know if they only have 2 years left of Steph and Steve Kerr and potentially even Draymond, because they got to figure out if they want him to, I don't know if he has an opt into the last year or if it's a team option, but basically it's 2 years left. And they got to figure out if they want to bring back Chris Paul this offseason. There's a lot of question marks. I just think that, they do have to address. I think last year we had the same conversation of what they need to address in the offseason. And this year, I think it's more telling. It's bigger than just trading away Jordan Poole so you get a bad contract off your books. It's, do you get rid of Wiggins? Do you let Clay walk? Do you trade Kuminga to get, as like a trade piece, to get a bigger player, a star player? What about Draymond? Is it just too much? Is he just too much of a headache? Was this season just the final straw where you put up with him because Steph loves him, but even Steph had his moments where he's like, God damn, dude, stop. There's just so many things, and we still got a month to figure it out and when July 1st hits. But yeah, Mike Dunleavy, a year removed from when he took over for Bob Myers. He's got a lot of work to do this offseason.
You think there's any chance that Draymond is pondering retirement again?
Now?
Because I fully believe him when he said that he was pondering it during his suspension. He was thinking about retiring and then got talked out of it. Like, I think he'll look at this summer, the fact that he's got some time off, he's probably going to get some airtime on TNT coming up here in the postseason, realizes that he's got a much better gig there, at least in terms of the physical toll that it will take on his body compared to, what playing actually will. Do you think there's any chance that he ponders it again? Or do you think
maybe
or he just rides the contract out? But even during the suspension, I don't know. I think this could have been a realization for him too. Like, God, these guys are they're just running us off the floor right now. And I don't even know if we could compete if we're these guys. I don't know. Maybe not. But I wonder if he's pondering it again, because he did before. And now that the season's over, probably has some time to talk it over with family. He might ponder it and get talked out of it. But I think it's a possibility.
It's a
saying it's
slim
going to happen.
possibility. It's a slim possibility. I think he does come back and play because he's still getting paid. I think we're going to get a lot of Draymond on TV, on TNT, and I think we're going to get a lot of podcasts. He's going to just, not have any basketball to play, so it's going to be him giving his 2 cents on the NBA playoffs, and it's going to piss off a lot of people. As far as everybody else, I mean, like, it's interesting that Klay Thompson was talking about his own basketball mortality a couple weeks ago on Draymond's podcast. And he said he's cool with everything. It's funny because he even said, like, I just got to go out there and have fun. I got to be me and, just not take things so seriously. And then it didn't feel that way at all last night. It didn't feel like he was playing free. It just felt like he was pressing too hard.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll just get into this now. I do think it's time to move on from Klay Thompson. I do. And I know that Steve, after the post game or during post game, said we need him. We don't have a lot of shooting on this team, so we do need him. And Steph advocated for him and said it's just one game. And Draymond felt the same way. But it's 2 years now where you needed him to come up big, and he's just not the same player. It's one thing if he's not defending the same, but the fact that he's not shooting the same is a big deal to me. And you can make the case for him to be the sixth man off the bench if he's going to accept that contract. I think the Magic actually have intentions of making him a big player on the team, a starting 5 player. But I don't know if it's worth it anymore. Is it really worth it to sign Klay Thompson to a 2-year deal, $48 million that he was looking for? I don't think he's earned it. I know a lot of people say, like, oh, he still had a solid season. It was a troubling season. It was where he started off, not playing well. It carried over from the Lakers series, and he just got into his own head. He was frustrated. He was a bad teammate. He'll tell you that. And he battled with Steve about playing and bench time. Then he finally, succumbed and agreed and got into the groove again and had a good attitude about things. But the reality is he is diminishing as a player. And we can't keep doing this thing every year where Joe Lacob is like, I can't let go of the past. We got to move on eventually. And I was wrapped up in it too. You were calling me out last podcast about, like, going to the old guys again. And it's fun, towards the end of the season for playing games and first round matchups. But the reality is this team is slowly dying. It is. And we need to accept that. Like I keep saying, let's cherish the past. But we can't keep, it's like when the Rolling Stones do, a goodbye tour every 2 years. And so this is the end. And they come back every year and they just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I think that's what the Warriors expect is like, oh, we can still win with Klay and Steph and Draymond. I don't think they can. I think they were lucky to win that last one. They still were a great team, and Klay and Steph was amazing in that series against the Boston Celtics.
Right.
It was a prove it season. They could do without Steph, or they could do without KD, and Steph could finally win an MVP. They accomplished everything they set out to do. Now it's just like it's not the same. And I think they need to make some drastic changes.
Yeah, well, the reason why it kind of signals the end, because even if they do bring Klay back, and the only reason I think they would is because they would, obviously for nostalgia purposes, have those 3 ride out their careers with the Warriors, like they always wanted to do. But they also might bank on the fact that he's not going to be playing in a contract year, and then they'll think that they're going to get that free version of Klay Thompson that we've had these past couple of months just because he doesn't have any contract things to worry about, and he knows that he's good here with the Warriors. I think that's what they'd bank on if they were to sign him. I don't know what his deal would look like. I think I forgot who wrote it, but they made I think it was Zach Lowe who compared like him to Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday's the same age. He got like a 5-year, $113 million or $130 million, whatever extension he got with the Boston Celtics. They are definitely not the same player. So I don't know what Klay is worth. To be honest, I'd like to think that 2 years, $48 million. I'd like to think that some other team would be willing to offer that, because that's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. But even if he does stick around, let's just say they do sign him for the future, this is where I think it signals the end, because even if they do, and they do keep the big three around and they just try to retool their roster around them, even with that, I don't think that team's winning another championship. Like, I think the ship has sailed. And, I was also trying to think of a comparison too. And I was thinking about Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's like, all right, you bring it back and you just keep on running it back for year after year. And the show is becoming less and less funny and it's kind of dying a slow death, but you don't want to end it because it's Curb Your Enthusiasm and it's backed by popular demand. And they had the final season and, obviously the send-off was great, but the show didn't end on the funniest way that it could have. And
did you watch the finale?
I did not.
Basically, I mean, we had this comparison a couple weeks ago where I said, are the Warriors Larry David? And I mean, no spoilers or anything, but like he just did a Seinfeld ripoff of the finale.
It was kind of obvious what he was going to do. He's going to bring it back to the first episode, and he was probably going to make a Seinfeld thing. And I'm sorry, Nathaniel Richards, Curb was not still hilarious. Appreciate you joining the show, but it was not still hilarious. The show sucked at the end. Sorry. I'm sorry no one wants to come to terms with it. Kind of like how people aren't coming to terms with the fact that this Warriors dynasty is nearing an end. The show stunk over the past few years since it came back. I'm sorry.
I second that motion. I second that. As a Curb Your Enthusiasm fan, diehard fan, it's very much like the Warriors. It is not the same.
Just go back and watch the old ones, and then you'll realize, like, oh man, it really took it really dropped in terms of comedy. But anyway, But anyway, that's what it feels like though, and I don't know what they do. Like I keep on going back to this Tim Legler clip from ESPN when the Warriors lost, and he was on Get Up, and Tim Legler again, he's very unbiased. He's not just going out there for he's not just going on ESPN to give his hot takes and create some false opinion after watching just like one game. No, he's truly watched it. He's truly watched this team, and he's like, look, you can try to blow it all up and rebuild. Well, what's that going to do for Steph when he's only got a couple of years on his contract? Can't do that. You could try to retool the roster, but even that's not going to get you anywhere. What are you going to do? Trade him for a couple of draft picks? Like, what's their value? Are you going to trade everyone to get a superstar? All right. Well, where's the depth of that team? I don't know where they go from here. And really, if you trade for a superstar, you're probably going to have to trade a bunch of first round picks. Like, who knows, in 2031 and 2032, and you have to do that whole thing. By the way, they don't have a draft pick this year. They don't have any pieces to trade.
They have a second round pick. They have a second round pick for Corey Joseph.
It just feels like since that James Wiseman pick, which not to no fault of his own, it was botched, but we got to remember the lead up to it. He did not get a fair shake it over at Memphis with what happened there with the boosters and everything, and how they kept him out for the season. Obviously, his training camp started when he got COVID, and it was during that COVID year. All those things hindered his development. So I'm not going to say it's James Wiseman's fault that it was a failed pick, but it just didn't work out. And from there, I mean, sure, you got Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, and those guys are great, but look at what Keegan Murray did last night. That's what a first-round pick who's taking over as the team star looks like. Putting up 32 points, 8 threes, and Kuminga, he's great, but the one guy that's on your team, the one guy who's carried your team over the years, and Steph Curry, he's changed everything in basketball. Guys like Kuminga, they're not as valuable because he can't shoot the three consistently. Like, you need someone who's going to give you a little bit of everything. And Kuminga, he's great. He's what everyone needs, but he's the type of player that every team needs. But is he going to be that one guy who's going to create his own shot every single time? No. And so, like, I just don't know where the team goes from here. I don't. And is it firing Steve Kerr? No, that's not the answer either.
I don't even want to entertain that, but we'll get to the whole Steve Kerr conversation.
By the way, the fan base that you talked to, you kind of like we talked about it all season, but when you kind of brought up, well, people are saying this and people are saying that, I'm like, which people? Well, I found out who those people were last night when they were reacting to this team on the old X. I learned of that. I don't ain't gonna
Yeah,
mention
I
any names.
mean,
If anyone's followed along, they know who I'm talking about.
yeah, I mean, everybody knows how I feel at this point. I love Steve Kerr, and I think that he gets a ton of flack that's just not warranted for a guy that's won 4 championships as a coach. And yeah, guys, like this was bound to happen. Things come to an end. Watch the fucking Dynasty show. Things end badly, and at least no one's like ripping each other's heads off. Like everything's cordial. Everybody loves each other for the most part. I think everybody has their problems with Draymond, but it's still, they still love him. It's just diminishing as a product on the field, and that's okay. We got to see amazing basketball for 10 years, and it's slowly coming to an end, and that's okay. That is okay. Um, I want to ask you though, Steven. Do you think it's time to move on from Klay Thompson?
At the end of the day, yeah. Yeah, I think they need some. I think they need some fresh blood in there, but I also think Klay Thompson needs a new change of scenery. I know he loves it here with Golden State, but God, he's been under such a microscope all season long, and I know that if he goes to another team, then well, the fan base it's kind of a lose for him in terms of like the fan reaction because I think it gets to him, right? What people say, even though he acts like he doesn't pay attention, I think he does,
They all
and
do. They all do.
yeah, they all see it. And if he goes to say like, I don't know, the Magic, right? And he's supposedly the piece they need. I know we got the Magic coming up in the playoffs, but let's just say they bounce out of the opening round or hell, even the Eastern Conference semifinal. I don't know whichever round they make it to. And let's say they have a need for a guy like Klay Thompson and they do sign him to an extension. Well, if Klay doesn't turn, or not even an extension, a new contract, if Klay doesn't happen to live up to whatever expectation they have for him and the role they want, like that fan base is going to turn on him too, unless he goes out there and performs. So it's kind of a lose in that regard. But I do think he just needs like a change of scenery somewhere. Maybe I don't know. Is this the right thing to say? Get humbled a little bit.
Well, I
riding on
mean,
the 4 championships and seeing your face in the banner, going into the practice facility, and all that sort of stuff, like going to a new team, it might be good for him.
I think he already has been humbled
Yeah,
with the
no, that's
decline
true.
of his play. And I
Yeah,
think I don't think he wants to go anywhere. I think this is like everyone today when we took calls, it seems the vibe is like, well, the Warriors got to convince Klay Thompson to come back. I don't think so. I think it's the other way around. I think Klay Thompson has to convince the Warriors that he's worthy of staying on the team. They already gave him the two for $48 million. And I think that's even steep right now, given what happened last night. I know everyone's like, you can't react to one game. I can. And it's becoming a trend. He has not shown up in the big moments lately. Like, what was the stat that Steiny said? He was 7 for what?
48 in the last 3
Yeah,
elimination games.
that's awful. That is awful. And listen, we all love Klay. Klay is a lovable guy. From Rocco to the way he is to the way he plays. If they do split apart this offseason, it will be heartbreaking because he is one of my favorite players. But it is what it is at this point. I can't justify giving Klay Thompson another contract. I can't. And if it's just like a 1 year deal to keep him happy, he's a 6 man off the bench, then I'd be okay with that. But I can't give him the contract that he rejected. I don't think he's earned it. So I think and Klay loves the Bay Area. He loves going on hikes. He loves doing the boat stuff. He can't find that anywhere else. I think at the end of the day, he doesn't want to leave. And I think this is kind of he was humbled last night. I think that he had the worst possible game he could have going into free agency. And now he's going to tell his agent, do what you can, whatever you can to keep me here. And now it's up to Mike Dunleavy and Joe Lacob and Steve Kerr to be like, okay, Steve's on board. I don't think that's bullshit. I think he really wants him. But is it in the best interest of him to stay on the team? I would say no. But I mean, if he's willing to take the role on of being a 6 man, then maybe, and he gets 6 man money. That would be a significant, pay cut. And it's interesting because I thought that he actually came to terms with what was going on this season on Draymond's podcast, and that's funny today. Like he does the goodbye interview, I think Tim Kawakami asked him, "So what do you think about the future?" And then Clay get upset. He's like, "What's up with you people? You guys want to ask about the future? What about the now? Jesus!" And it's like, Clay, come on, dude. You know what it is. Like, I
The
I
season's
wish,
over. The future
yeah,
is the now.
exactly.
Like,
Like, what do you want to talk about? Like, I love that he was, he was humble enough to be like, yeah, had a donut last night, and yeah, it was bad, but he can't play it off like, it's just another game. Like, this has become a thing, dude. This has become a thing.
you could tell by now when he is truly bothered by a question and doesn't really he doesn't look in the eye. He's like, "Come on, dude. What do you
Yeah.
mean? What are you talking about?
So
Come
you want to
on, man."
bench you want to bench me and Wiggs?
I do. I do love Clay because
Yeah.
he does make me laugh, and I do think that even though it was a very serious moment, I couldn't help but chuckle a little bit when he just goes, "Kidding me?" Huh. Like I don't know why it makes me laugh, but it does. It just
No,
it
but
just
that's
I think he's a funny guy.
because it's funny. Yeah, I mean,
I think look, I think
I
other
love
teams
him,
would be
but
willing to take him on. I think other teams would be willing to take on like a more of a contract than the Warriors would give him. I really think that he could earn a surprising contract where a team's willing to overpay because he has won those 4 rings, because he has proven it's some like I know it's his last game, but you got to look at the last 2 months too before that, and he proved that he still got it. And I think another team would be looking for his services, and I don't think Zach Lowe on ESPN is just saying things to say it when is drawing interest from other teams around the league, and he could get paid.
I don't doubt that at all. But we know that Clay has been dealing with a lot mentally.
Right.
Do you think that he would be happy going someplace else to be overly paid on a shitty team?
Maybe not on a shitty team, but on one that's contending. I think he'd be very happy to go somewhere that's contending. Yes.
Are the Magic really contending?
Yeah. Yeah. They're a
More so than
fantastic
the Warriors.
they're a fantastic defensive team. They have a future. They have a future there.
All right.
And if you had a veteran piece like Clay, I think that he could really make it work. And hey, man, I mean, how close is Orlando to? I don't know. I don't know what Florida is. How close is Orlando to a beach? Is it close to a body of water?
He can find a good boat and go to where my mom lives, a Boca Raton or some, Miami. He'll be fine in Florida.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I mean that's going to be something we talk a lot the next month before free agency hits on. I mean, shit, we got a couple months till July 1st. NBA playoffs haven't even started yet. We got to think about that. Like we got a whole gauntlet of NBA playoffs, and the Warriors are not even in it. Like
right.
This happened this happened a few years ago when they lost to the Lakers by 1 point and they lost the Grizzlies game, but they went down swinging. Last night they just got their ass kicked. And yeah, I think that's telling. I think that they barely made the play-in to be the 10th seed, and they were not up to the challenge last night against the Kings. Yep. So as far as like what they could do this offseason, do you think it's in their best interest to rebuild around Steph or go for a big trade?
Well, see, this is the $1 million question.
I
And
know.
actually, I was thinking about how to word this earlier. I don't think even some of the best GMs in the league know how to fix this situation. Like I was listening to the sports talk today and listening to people's proposals of what they need to do. Weird caller on 95.7 said they need to draft Bronny James and hold him for ransom so that LeBron would come to the Warriors or something like that. They immediately hung up on him. Actually, Guru in the middle of it was like, "Where's the flush?"
I think I saw someone on the text line today bring up Bronny James too, and I was like, "We're not doing that."
I don't think that any of us actually know what the Warriors need to do. What I think would be the best option out of those two, it would be to retool and try to get some good role players here, but I don't think that would work. I don't think trading a bunch of your future to get a superstar would work, because you are taking a huge chance on that, and one that will impact. Like, do you want to be competitive again by 2035? Like, if you were to trade away a bunch of draft picks, you're talking picks into the 2030s.
Yeah.
If you were to trade away a bunch of your draft picks just to acquire a superstar, along with the pieces that you have now, you'd probably throw Kuminga in there, Andrew Wiggins likely, because Wiggins is, I think he just honored the first year of the contract extension that they gave him.
Woof.
I don't think like those options you gave, I don't think these are the ones to fix this. I really think they're at the point of no return right now. Like, that's kind of where I'm at with this team. Like, they got Steph, and he's fantastic. And I don't know, maybe Brandon Pajemski takes like a huge leap next year and they figure something out, but I just don't know what that answer is. That's what that goes back to my first point. It feels like the end, because even if they keep the big three around and they try to win another championship with those guys, I don't know if that's a championship team, because at the same time, these other teams are only getting better. Like the Western Conference, I know it was a really tough Western Conference this year. Their 46 wins, I think last season would have gotten them 46 wins would have gotten them 5th or 4th or something like that. But it's going to be the case again next year. The Western Conference again is going to be very strong. You're going to have to get a lot of wins, probably 45 plus, if you even want a chance at the play-in. I don't know what the answer is here, Derek. I don't think those two options that you gave are going to fix anything. I think it's just going to put you in more of a hole.
Well, I think the long-term decision would be to rebuild around Steph, but I don't think that's feasible with the timeline. I think that with Steve Kerr having a 2-year deal and Steph having a 2-year deal, it basically means that they still want to win. So I think it's going to be a mix of maybe saying goodbye to Clay, but I think they're more inclined to keep him. I believe they should, but I don't think they will. I think they will try to move Wiggins. If they could get a superstar for Kuminga and something else, they'll try to do that. But at the end of the day, they're limited. Like you said, Steven, the draft picks are not there. So I do think that they're going to be stuck in purgatory for a little while. Yeah. And let's be completely honest. I love Bob Myers, but I think he put them in a bad position with the kind of mediocre drafts in the past. Let's be honest. From Jacob Evans to, God, who else? I mean, Wiseman. Wiseman didn't pan out, but
does Jordan Bell count?
Yeah, Jordan Bell counts. Who else? Who's the guy they drafted right after the first championship?
Damian Jones.
Damian Jones. Damian Jones was good for a little while and then didn't pan out. I mean, let's be real. Patrick
Baldwin
missed
Jr., Ryan Rollins.
Patrick Baldwin,
those guys are gone.
Yep. All those guys. All those guys didn't pan out, and they were, they really didn't care. They were so good with the star players that they had that they were like, all right, whatever, and they didn't plan for the future very well. So this is where we're at, and yeah, I don't know. Even Steve today was like, I don't know what we do. Like there's so many things we could do. We could plan for the future, but I still would love to win. And he thinks that they could still win with the guys that they have. He also said, I don't think we need to spend $400 million to win. So that may tell you that they may shed some salary. Then again, I don't know who wants to trade for Wiggins in that contract. There is a market for Draymond, but I still think they're inclined to keep him. I don't know. They have a whole lot of shit to do this offseason. So I don't know. I don't have the answers. That is something that Mike Dunleavy is going to have to figure out.
Well, see, that's the thing is we all try to do this. We try to play GM, but I really don't think that some GMs in the NBA would know how to fix this roster. No. They might have an answer, but I don't know if it would be the right answer. And random side note in the chat, AJ Cruz. Who's Uncle Looney, by the way? I don't know who that is. Is that in the KBR chat
Kevon
thing?
Looney?
Well, it said, I don't
Oh.
know, but in the chat earlier, AJ Cruz says Uncle Looney said people have something against pods for off the court issues. Anyone know what he's referring to? The only thing, not off the court, on the court, saw that little awkward exchange that he had with Andrew Wiggins, where he like refused to take Wiggins' help, getting off the floor. There did seem to be something there. If you remember, like some people did the professional lip reading thing, and there were a couple of times where Pods didn't pass the ball to Wiggins, and Wiggins kind of looked at him like, "Who are you, dude?" And if you take that and you combine it with, say, what Draymond said about Pods early in the season, that he was talking a little shit in the preseason, I could see him rubbing some people the wrong way. Though there's nothing that's actually concrete out of that. That's all just speculation on my part.
Yeah, I'm not even going to entertain any of that.
Why not?
Because I don't care. As long as they're all just playing basketball, who cares?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No, I don't think there's much. I don't think there's any friction within the team. I just don't think there's much of an answer right now. And I don't think, like, when I saw people clamoring for Trace Jackson Davis, I told you I'd rather have TJD over Kevon Looney.
But that was ridiculous last night. I saw the same thing. Sorry to cut you off, but like people like screaming at halftime, like, where's Trace Jackson Davis? He couldn't play at the beginning of the game. It was obvious they were going right after him. So Bonus was toying with the young man. They needed to get him out.
Yeah, it was going to be bad. And even with Kevon Looney on the floor, Looney played some okay defense, but even then they were just getting him into foul trouble right away. If he would have stayed in for more than, I don't know, however many 30 minutes that game, he would have fouled out easily by like the start of the fourth quarter. I just think that they just weren't prepared at all last night. And I know I just think it's something we could see into the future. It's just these teams are getting younger. They're quicker, all of it.
No, I agree. But I do want to acknowledge the job that Steve Kerr did this season, because I think a lot of people gave him a lot of shit this season for whatever reason. From Draymond's suspension to Andrew Wiggins' hiatus to Kuminga publicly going to Shams saying that he wants to be traded if he doesn't get playing time, to the death of Dejan Milojevic. Steve Kerr had to deal with a lot of bullshit this year. And not even to mention people questioning him as a coach, which I thought was ridiculous. I think this is one of the better coaching jobs he's done, to deal with all of that stuff and still have them in the play-in. I think Steve is the second best coach in the league, if not the best. You can argue that Popovich is the best with more rings, or Steve's better, but he's great. He got, like, I hate that everybody says, like, oh, well, anybody could have got the Warriors to, win a championship. Mark Jackson didn't. Excuse me. Sorry, I just feel. Excuse me. Just makes me so angry. I sneeze. Sorry, allergies, everybody. But yeah, like I just think we gotta give praise to Steve Kerr. I think that he did an amazing job this season, and he doesn't get enough credit. I think he gets way too much blame. So that's all I gotta say about that. It's easy for him to, the championship seasons he did great. The 73-9 season, all those years he did a fantastic job. But for all of the bullshit they had to deal with this season, I think this was one of his best coaching years yet.
I don't know if best is the right way to describe it, but yes.
It's not the best, but it's in the conversation.
For sure, because of all the circumstances that have surrounded that. And I'm seeing way too much of the Luke Walton thing, where Luke Walton went undefeated with this team. If that's not a sign that anyone can coach, then I don't know what is, especially with his next stints. Well, just look at his next stints and what he did after that with both the Lakers and Kings. He inherited what was a dumpster fire at the time. So, like, I can't stand that argument either. It was so annoying. But Kerr constantly having to talk about rotations, constantly talking about everything. Like, God, that's not what a head coach is supposed to do. Like, we think rotations are like their only job. Not at all. He's not supposed to talk about rotations. He's not supposed to be talking about Kuminga's minutes, who's coming off the bench and why, and he's doing all these different things. But that's the story of what this team is. And if that's not an indicator, if that's not an indicator, this wasn't a championship team, then I don't know what is. Like I think it was a commendable job what he did this year. Very commendable. But at the same time, he did get out coached last night. And it did
No doubt.
seem like
No doubt.
Mike Brown's team was way more prepared. And if we're going to get on Klay Thompson for what he did in this last game, well, I think Steve Kerr can be that way too. And I did like his answer at the end when he kind of talked about what he needs to improve upon next season, and that's getting his shooters some open looks. Well, you know what? If they bring Klay back and they could somehow get him back to being the catch and shoot Klay as opposed to the Klay who's going to get open but kind of has to find his shot still. If they could somehow space the floor and do all those different things like he said, then great. I have to see it still, and I like that he acknowledged it, but I think we also got to take into account that he didn't bring his best effort when it mattered most, and I do think that kind of has me hesitant to call it his best coaching season yet.
Yeah, but I also think that when you face off against a guy that knows you pretty well, that shit's bound to happen sometimes. So Mike Brown got out coached last season at points in that series, and then last night Mike Brown got the better of Steve Kerr. That's going to happen sometimes. I hear you. What I'm trying to say is, like, it wasn't so much like his best X's and O's season or anything like that. It was just like the motivating factor to get these, like, from convincing Klay Thompson that he needs to go to the bench to convincing Draymond Green not to retire to, dealing with whatever's going on with Andrew Wiggins to helping Steph to convincing Jonathan Kuminga, like initially being like, I don't know if he can play on this team, to then being like, yeah, I think he's a solid addition to this team. Steve is such a good person, I think, and he's willing to listen to everybody. He's also a hard ass that many people don't realize behind the scenes of just what he expects as far as, like, intellect and work ethic and everything that basically he had as a player, he expects it of everybody else. That's probably why he likes pods so much, is because he kind of reminds him of himself. I just think that there was so much adversity this season that other teams would have crumbled, and I think that Steve kept it afloat. And I think Steph kept it afloat. I think all the leaders kept it afloat. Draymond did, even in his absence. Well, not in his absence. When he came back, he still somehow got everyone to galvanize around him. I think that it's just commendable for the job he did this season. And I know that they've had better, more accomplished seasons, but I think it was just impressive what was going on. I mean, most importantly, it was the death of Decky, that I thought that they could have just, thrown the towel in and be like, we saw this guy die in front of our own eyes. And yet they still, they made it a thing where they came together. They wore the Decky, shirts, and they celebrated him. And in the end, the season did not go the way that they wanted. But I still think it's accomplishment and just how much goes around that no one sees behind the scenes, that they were still able to be a competitive team. So I do commend Steve Kerr and the whole team for that.
Yeah, and all we can see is what happens on the court, and we can go back and say all the things that Steve Kerr did wrong and act like we can make those decisions in real time too. Not even to mention that he was in the Philippines coaching the Basketball World Cup, and I know people aren't going to want to hear that. It's just like, oh, why are you just making excuses for the guy? But he spent a lot of the summer in the Philippines as everything was going down, and then he had to get right back to training camp, figure out how it was going to work with Chris Paul and all those different things. And now he's going to go on to Paris to coach Team USA for the Olympics. I'm excited to watch him and Steph in that aspect. That'll be a lot of fun.
I am very excited for that, because they'll have a lot of time prepared now. But yeah, Steve and Steph and Perry, can't wait for that. But yeah, it's just weird. It's weird for Warriors basketball to end this early. Maybe we should get used to it, because that was the case a couple years ago. I mean, the 15-win season was awful. The season after that where they got bounced before the playoffs and the play-in. They won the championship, and then last year things end in the second round, and then this year things end. Yeah, man. I can't say the future is bright for the Warriors, but it's just going to be interesting to see how they handle things. But we can always look to the past. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Just enjoying what you had, and things change. Like Steph may have what's the big deal if Steph has to go through like a Damian Lillard phase where he's on like a bad team for a couple of years. Problem is he doesn't even that's all they have is a couple of seasons. That's unless they want to re-sign Steph to a lucrative contract well into his 40s, they got to win now, which is the hard part. This is going to be a clusterfuck.
Well, I mean, as much as the Steve Kerr haters want to say that he's ruining the prime of Steph Curry's career, no, Dame Lillard's prime was ruined in Portland. So that's the biggest difference. You can have the Damian Lillard time, but the Damian Lillard thing that was happening when he was in his late 20s, dude.
And some might say that was on Dame's own volition because he refused to do a trade demand and everything. And then finally he did this year. And now he doesn't have Giannis, which is ironic.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, yeah, man. It is going to be a crazy few months until we get to free agency and see what the Warriors have planned. As far as the other things going on in basketball. Oh, sorry, do you want to bring something up, Steven?
Nope. You are good.
Okay. Just taking a big old breath. Pelicans lost to the Lakers. Zion Williamson scores 40 in that game. I thought, they fought back in that game. They were getting their ass kicked, and then Zion kept him in that game, and this is the best season he's had yet. And then he just lands awkwardly and hurts his hamstring, and it doesn't sound like he's going to come back anytime soon, which sucks. This guy may be injury prone, which it seems to always happen to the guys that have all the hype around them. Like physically, he's just amazing. He was going toe to toe with LeBron in the closing seconds. I thought they would have won that game if he stayed healthy, but then he gets hurt, and now the Pelicans have to fight for their lives on Friday. So they will play the Kings. I think they can still win that game without Zion. They've won playing games before without him. And then just a few hours ago, Jimmy Butler gets hurt. It sounds like he hurt his MCL, which will be huge for the playing game they have on Friday. But the 76ers come back to win that game. I didn't see the ending, but apparently Joel Embiid had a big moment, and they win that game by 1 point. So the 76ers go on to play the Knicks as the 2-7. The Lakers will play the Nuggets in the 2-7. And then we got the play-in right now for the East. It looks like the Bulls and Hawks are having a tightly contested game, but I think in the end, the Heat should advance against either of these teams. That's my opinion of that.
Yeah, they should, but if they don't have Jimmy Butler.
They don't have Jimmy Butler, but I think they still have a lot of talent on that team despite him. Now, does it bode well for the next round? Probably. Against the Celtics, the Heat have always posed a threat against the Celtics, but without Jimmy Butler, that's not much of a series.
Yeah, well, either way, they're going to lose in the first round no matter who comes out the winner. Is that a little tease there?
Might be. Before we do that, we did our play-in picks last podcast, and the only one we had difference was Lakers-Pelicans. So, Steven got that right with the Lakers. I got the Pelicans wrong, and we're back to the hot sauce. So, keeping it healthy. Got a little carrot here. Oh. And I got the last dab Apollo still in my cupboard. So I'm going to go all Conan O'Brien here. I'm not going to rub it on my nipples and get into my... He did an interview to talk about the aftermath of going on Hot Ones. And he was like, God, that was such a bad decision. To chug that and then to get all that shit in his cuticles. He got the hot sauce on his wedding ring. He was like, yeah, it was... I made people laugh, but it was painful after the whole thing. So here we go. I'm going to do a little last dab on this carrot, and then we'll do our first round picks. Unless you want to give me something to talk about, Stephen, while I do this.
Ooh. Did you see the Caitlin Clark Nike deal? Getting her own signature shoe?
Pretty sweet. That's great for her. That is great for her, and that may help with her decision to not go to the big three. But maybe she should still do it.
I
By
don't
the
think
way,
so.
no, you don't think so? She just do the WNBA.
Yeah.
By the way, we will next podcast. Remind me. There's a little tease. I may be giving away. We'll do Jackass of the Week. Very awkward exchange with her today. If you saw the
Saw
clip,
that.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'll save that for Sunday. All right, here we go. Little dab on the carrot. You like the sound effects, don't you?
It sounds so gross, dude.
It's been a while. But I remember just the way you taste.
Kind of enjoying
right.
it. You're enjoying it too much. You're just eating some carrot with a hot sauce.
It's been a while, Steven. I'm not in football mode anymore. Haven't had hot sauce in a while. Yeah, that's hot. All right.
You're wagging
water,
your
here we
finger
go.
a lot.
Like Kimbe Mutombo. Didn't Patrick Bailey do that today?
Yeah, that he did.
Good for him.
Pretty sweet.
Woo! All right. Let's do our NBA playoff round 1 picks.
Uh-huh.
And we'll make some assumptions here with the playing games for Friday. Let's start in the West. What do you think, Steven? You think with no Zion, Kings versus Pelicans, who do you got winning that game?
Yeah, I'll take the Kings winning that one.
All right. Okay, fair enough. I still think the Pelicans win that game. But regardless,
wow.
If it's a Kings versus Thunder matchup or a Pelicans versus Thunder matchup, who do you have winning the series?
Hang on real quick. I'm talking to the chat here. I'm not talking to you. This is me talking directly to the chat. You see this guy?
Who?
He acts like he's in pain. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the chat.
So you're on a little soliloquy. Okay.
Step back. Chat, you see this guy? Look at this guy. He just ate a whole bunch of hot sauce, acted like it was painful, and then just moving right along like he just had a nice little carrot stick with just a dab of ranch. The hell, man? You're not reacting in any way, shape, or form.
Well, sorry, I don't go all out like you, like the drama queen you are.
I'm giving my exact reaction. Am I maybe exaggerating a little bit at times, but yes, I do feel that way.
Fine. You want a show, Steven? I'll put on a show. Jesse, milk, Jesse, milk.
I mean, gotta have a girlfriend for that.
Well done, sir.
Oh, jeez. All right.
And by the way,
what?
I am gonna upgrade. Remember that sauce I was telling you about, the Pepper X in the new one?
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy that hot sauce, and that will be the new hot sauce I do for next football season.
Oh, okay. Right on. Jesus, Phoebe. Oh man.
And there's Phoebe.
Oh boy. So apparently that was a low blow. I'm sorry. It was a low blow, but it's the first thing that popped into my head.
Stop. The chat is way too soft tonight. Please, come on, guys. Can we all riff?
I'm getting it from Etch-a-Sketch here.
Yeah, don't you know them?
Yeah, it's Francisco. It's my guy.
Nice. Oh, this guy thinks you're a better actor. Please.
Yeah.
No.
Just in Disneyland. I was just in Disneyland with his sister on Friday, along with a group of friends.
Gotcha.
Actually, make sure you tell her she's I sent the receipt for the dinner or lunch rather we all had. Make sure she sends over that money. Did she do that? Anyway, that's personal business.
All right. Whether it's the Kings or the Pelicans, do you see them beating the Thunder in the first round?
No.
Okay. So
I don't.
What do you think the Thunder do? Whether it's the Pelicans or the Kings, what do you think they win that? Well, you think they win that series, and how long do you think the series goes?
Yeah, I think it'll go. struggling here, but I think it'll go to a game 6. I think it'll go to a game 6, but I ultimately think the Oklahoma City Thunder win on the road and take that
Okay.
series.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I got the same thing. I got OKC in 6. They're a
Damn.
young team, but I think that they have a lot of offensive firepower. I think that they're better. They can put up a lot of points against the Kings or Pelicans. So yeah, I think the Pelicans advance without Zion, but yeah, I got the Thunder getting on the first round.
Mm.
Then we got the 2-7 matchup, a rematch of last year's Western Conference Finals. Lakers won, but I don't think that they. Well, okay, I'm not going to say this because this was a stupid thing to say about Mike Greenberg. They should tank the game to avoid the Nuggets, which Darvin Ham was like, "You kidding me?" They actually asked him the question, which I don't think they should have. But not a good matchup for the Lakers, in my opinion. See, Steven, I'm still feeling it.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of this, Steven? Lakers versus Nuggets. Who do you got winning, and how long do you think the series goes?
Oh, I don't know. I'm thinking that Denver. I think the floors of Denver Nuggets fans are going to be squeaky clean because they're going to be getting the brooms out after a sweep over the Lakers, baby.
2 years in a row?
Yep.
I don't have it being a sweep. I have it being a little better. I got the Nuggets at 5,
All right.
but not a good matchup for the Lakers. Yeah, dumb thing to say by Mike Greenberg, and I don't think he's being serious half the time when he talks. Then we got actually a good matchup here: the Phoenix Suns, everyone's favorite offseason team, coming in as a sixth seed. Everyone's healthy now against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Karl Anthony Towns healthy again. Steven, who wins this series? How many games?
Suns in 4. Suns in 4. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. I forgot about that guy.
Yeah, whatever happened to that guy?
I don't know. Just probably sucker punching people somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, anyway, this is a tough one to kind of evaluate because I want my gut says to take the Timberwolves, and I think I will. But I think this one has a solid chance of going 7 games. So just give me the Timberwolves in 7.
Timberwolves in 7.
Yep.
I like Karl Anthony Towns and I like Anthony Edwards. I think they have a lot of promise for the future, but they're very young. And this is probably going to be a dumb pick because I always fell for this with the Brooklyn Nets. They got healthy in the playoffs, and one season, if it wasn't for Kevin Durant's big toe on the line, it was the only playoff run they ever had. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm falling for it. I got the Phoenix Suns winning in 6.
Wow.
I think that they're catching steam right now, and I think that yes, they probably don't have the chemistry because they were never healthy for that long of time, but they should be better than what they were. And the Timberwolves are a very good team, but I think that they don't have enough playoff experience, so I'm going to take the Phoenix Suns to win in 6.
All right.
And these teams may face each other every year in the playoffs. I don't know how this happens all the time, but it's happening again. Dallas Mavericks against the Los Angeles Clippers. I think Kawhi is going to play, but I don't know what the deal is with his knee right now. No clue. But Steven, who you got this series? Who you got in this series, and how long do you think it lasts?
This is another tough one. But whatever it is with Kawhi, that does not sound good. The uncertainty around that.
Yeah.
And I do think at some point, and I know it sucks to bank on that sort of thing, but I do think at some point it's going to impact this series. I'll take the Mavericks winning this one, and I'll take it game 6 with the Mavs winning at home.
Yep, I got the same thing. I think that the Kawhi's injury is just going to play too big of a factor, and the Mavericks got to beat the Clippers eventually because I think it was in the bubble in 2020 and 2021 they faced each other, and the Clippers got the best of the Mavericks. I think both series went either 6 or 7, but this time I see the Mavericks prevailing. All right, let's go over to the East now, where the Boston Celtics will play the winner of the play-in on Friday, which will be the Miami Heat, which looks like it will be without Jimmy Butler. And right now it would be the Chicago Bulls because they currently have a 99-87 lead over the Atlanta Hawks. However, do you see the Celtics losing to either of these teams?
Nope. I'm trying to do a sweeping motion here. I
All
don't know
right.
I don't know if you could see that, but I'm seeing a Celtics sweep, no matter if it's the Bulls or the Hawks. And it really is looking like the Bulls here. They just took a 16-point lead? Yeah. So I'm going Bulls, but Celtics sweep.
Yeah, I don't have a sweep, but I'll say Boston in 5, whoever they play. All right. And then we got the 2-7 matchup. 76ers survive, so they go on to be the 7th seed, and they'll play the New York Knicks without Julius Randle. But Jalen Brunson is playing his ass off right now. Who do you got in this series, and how many games does it go, Steven? You got Philly versus New York.
Ooh, I think it's going to be a really good series, actually. I'm looking forward to this one. And I'm saying this just because I hope it does, but I'm just going to say this one goes 7, and I got the Knicks winning it all.
Nice. I think same deal with the Suns. The Sixers are getting healthy right now. And Jalen Brunson's playing great, but he needs Julius Randle, and he's out for the season. And I think they're going to have a hard time defending Joel Embiid. So, with that being said, I have the upset. I got the Philadelphia 76ers winning in 6. And that will piss off all of the New York fans.
All those New York fans who listen to this podcast, yeah.
Yes,
the heavy New York contingent.
Quite a big contingent. Oh, yeah. Since we talked about Tommy DeVito, there's a lot of New York fans now.
Hey, oh man, Donnie DeVito, he's stoked on this.
Man, hey, you, these guys, Derek eats the hot sauce. Hey, forget about it.
Hey, Tom Thibodeau runs these guys hard at practice. They need that. Hey.
All right. Then the 3-6 matchup. It is the Milwaukee Bucks who will be without Giannis for, I'm thinking, most of the series, if not all, against the Pacers, right? Yeah, Pacers.
Uh-huh.
So Indiana versus Milwaukee. Who you got in this series, Steven?
Actually, I believe it or not, because Giannis is going to be out. Look, I think the Pacers just seem to have the Bucks number, whatever it is, even dating back to that NBA Cup, like whatever that thing was in the mid-season tournament.
The in-season, yeah.
Yeah, but I actually have the Pacers winning this one because they'll be without Giannis. Look, I don't think they're going to want to rush Giannis back at all. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be too late by the time he does come back. I got the Pacers winning this one in Miami. I got them, excuse me, in Milwaukee. I got them winning this one in 5 games.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And then do they fire Doc Rivers?
That could happen. Yeah.
God, yeah. They really fucked up their head coaching position.
Yep, but at the same time though, I don't think the Bucks players liked Adrian Griffin. There had to have been some dysfunction there.
No doubt. But should they just kept Mike Budenholzer?
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
Yeah, Jesus, just won a championship. I've gone back and forth on this one. Without Giannis, they still got Chris Middleton. I still gonna take the Bucks. Against my better judgment, I'm gonna take the Bucks in 7.
All right.
Because I think Giannis may come back at some point, but they'll probably keep him out. I think Dame and Chris Middleton and is it Brooke Lopez? Not Robin Lopez, Brooke Lopez, right?
Well, I both the Lopez brothers on that team now.
I think one of them left. I think Robin Lopez left.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Bucks in 7. And then lastly, the 4-5 matchup. You got the Orlando Magic versus the Cavs. I'll make this one easy. I got the Cavs winning in 5. I don't think the Magic score enough points.
Yeah, that's the thing. They need more offense. I agree with you. And just to be different, I'll take the Cavs in 6. I'll just give them the Magic the benefit of the doubt. But I'm with you, and they're going to need a player like Klay Thompson, and they might go after him. Worst kept
That could be
secret
the
in the
case.
league. Worst
That could
kept
be the
secret in the league, Tim Kawakami. Huh?
Gonna move on to some NFL now, Steven. You ready for me to talk wide receivers and get a little hyperbolic here?
How long is it going to take?
I'll go faster. I think this wide receiving class may be the best that I have particularly seen as far as talent going into the draft. These guys are amazing. From Marvin Harrison Jr., who looks like his dad, from Malik Neighbors, who looks like Tyreek Hill, to Aroma Duze, who kind of looks like Devontae Adams. I think all three of those guys are interchangeable as far as who's the best wide receiver in this draft. If I had to pick one, I think Malik Neighbors is the most electric out of the three. But Marvin Harrison Jr. catches everything. He is a shifty route runner. He's great. He's graceful. He kind of reminds me of Jerry Rice. He reminds me of his dad. He is his dad. And then Aroma Duze just catches everything. They're big. He's just a big body receiver. If you're looking for guys to go get 50-50 balls, it's Marvin Harrison and Aroma Duze. But as far as like a speedy slot guy that can just, bust out a 70-yard touchdown catch, that's Malik Neighbors. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised because we're talking about are a bunch of quarterbacks going to go in the first round? Are they going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? I don't think that's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes quarterback, 1, 2, 3, wide receiver 4, 5, 6. Would not be surprised by that. As far as the other guys, I watched 10 wide receivers and I was impressed by all of them. I watched Brian Thomas Jr., who kind of reminds me of Julio Jones, big body guy, has got some speed, but to me, he's kind of a number 2. That's why I think he'll kind of go lower in this draft. Hell, he could be a number 1. I mean, these days, is it kind of interchangeable? Like Devonta Smith went high in the draft in 2021, but he's kind of the number 2 to Antonio Brown. Doesn't really matter anymore. Who's the number 1 between Debo and Ayuk? And by the way, there's something going on with that lately. So yeah, I think that's interchangeable. Same thing with Adon Mitchell, who I saw at Texas. He reminds me of T. Higgins, just a big body receiver who goes up and gets the high point of the football. But I think he could be like a number 2 guy too. I don't see him as being a number 1, but does that really matter anymore? Probably not. Xavier Worthy, skinny kid, 175 pounds, but goddamn is he fast as hell. He had the fastest 40 time of all time. What was it, a 4.21?
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the case, but he's just skinny. He's got to bulk up a little bit, but he probably will go late first round, early second round, but he's by far the fastest guy in this whole draft. Xavier Legette, he reminds me of DK Metcalf, just huge, just bulldozes over guys, and he's fast. He's probably the sleeper of all the wide receivers. And then you got my favorite name in the whole draft, Ladd McConkey. Good old Ladd McConkey from Georgia. This guy just catches everything. He's going to be a volume receiver. Just gets like 125 balls a year. He kind of reminds me of Puka Nacua. Well, he'll just go up and get the football. Not super fast, but he'll catch everything. And then you got Keon Coleman, who's probably the best jump ball receiver in the draft. He's huge as well. He kind of reminds me of a little bit of Michael Pittman or Mike Evans. And then you got Troy Franklin, who's fast, kind of in the Malik Neighbors range, Xavier Worthy. Reminds me of Percy Harvin. Just really fast, slot guy, and goes up against the football. Lightning quick speed. Xavier Worthy, Malik Neighbors, and Troy Franklin could all be return guys. So those are the wide receivers I looked at. There's a lot more. I know Rocket New Era here's got Jerry Rice's son. Didn't look at him. I know there's Luke McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey's brother. There's a ton of wide receivers in this draft. I did not watch them all, but those were the most impressive. I mean, those are the ones that I chose to watch, and they all look great. It's just a matter of, are they going to be wide receiver 1s, wide receiver 2s? The best 3 guys by far are Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Aroma Duze.
Right. So I mean, how many of those guys are actually going to pan out? I never
I
know
don't
with wide
know.
receivers.
I don't know, but I think just the potential is there for all 10 of the guys that I mentioned to be really, really good. Now, I saw today that some people are saying that Adonai Mitchell is a diva, and you got to watch out for him. Same thing with Malik Neighbors. There could be off the field stuff with some of these guys, but as far as just the talent, that's all I care about, really. That's all I'm focusing on. They all look incredible. And I'll throw this guy out there because I'm not gonna spend time on tight ends because this is not a good tight end draft. Brock Bowers is legit. Like, he's George Kittle. He's not as good blocking, but he can catch. He can make the catches. He can bulldoze over guys. I think he'd be perfect with the Jets. Uh, yeah, he's the best tight end prospect we've seen in quite some time. Not good enough to go in the top 5 because I just don't think that ever since Kyle Pitts was drafted way too early, I don't think a lot of teams are going to do that anymore. But yeah, Brock Bowers is legit. There's some questions on his injury. I think he had some medical stuff, but I think he's worth it.
All right. All right.
So there you
That'll
go.
be interesting.
Fast enough for you, Steven?
Just about.
All right.
I don't know. Like, you added this. I'm just going to say it right now. You talked you said, I don't know, we could talk Bill Belichick in draft coverage. I think I've told you this before. This is no offense to the people who, put in all the work and do this stuff so they can give this information, but I'm not interested in draft coverage. Like, I'm just not. I'll see which guys go to which team. I'll look at my phone. I'll look down at the picks. I'm not going to waste 15 minutes in between each pick just so I could watch it. I got other things that I need to do. And then I'll see if those guys pan out or not. I can't stand draft coverage because, well, I think it's also me being biased as a Raider fan because every single draft, it'd be like they're touting all these guys, and then the Raiders would draft someone out of nowhere, and then they'd say, "Oh, I did not have him that high on my draft board." It's just there's so much that goes into it that I think what gets lost in the shuffle is that not a lot of these guys are actually going to pan out in the NFL. So I don't care if Bill Belichick's joining Pat McAfee's draft coverage. I'm not going to watch draft coverage because I don't watch draft coverage. Like, I do other things.
Yeah, that's kind of a contrast to what you said a couple weeks ago, where you said you were very intrigued with all the quarterbacks in this draft.
I'm very intrigued with all the quarterbacks, but once those guys are out in the first round, and maybe you have a couple left in the second, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to sit at the TV and watch the overproduced show that the NFL draft is trying to be.
Not just one show, Steven. Many.
Yeah. Well, actually,
like
the only time I will
two networks, NFL Network and ESPN, and then not to mention, Bill Belichick on Pat McAfee's draft coverage.
Lovely. I won't be watching that.
I won't be either. I'll be watching the actual thing. But come on. I mean, yes, I know you're jaded from Mike Mayock. The total ironic thing is Mike Mayock becoming the Raiders GM and not, choosing the best players may have been John Gruden's fault. But then, being the go-to guy on the NFL Network's broadcast to then being like, the hell are they doing? They're taking Darius Hayward-Bay. This guy can't catch. And then fast forward, some, Daniel Jeremiah. The hell is Mike Mayock doing drafting Alex Leatherwood? The hell is that about?
Right. Yeah.
So
that might have something to do with it, but it also has something to do with the show that it becomes. I just can't stand watching it and having to wait 10 minutes in between each pick. I'd just rather do anything else and just keep track on my phone.
I hear you. I'm a draft guy. I love anything NFL, so I'm gonna watch it. And there are some questions here in the chat. Speaking of draft stuff, Derek Cope said something about a draft party next week. Yes, there will be. I don't know if I can. Yeah, okay. There's going to be 2 sites this year for the NFL draft, for as far as KNBR's coverage. I will not divulge that today. There will be more promotion of that tomorrow, but there will be 2 locations for the KNBR's draft coverage. I can't say where they're going to be. That'll be announced tomorrow during the day, but just look out. There will be 2 separate locations. Just throwing that out there.
All right.
All right. So there you go. Yes, I'm sure the morning show will announce it, or Tolbert and Copes will announce it, or Pop and Lund will. There will be announcement tomorrow on KNBR's draft coverage. Don't you worry, everybody. But yeah, so Belichick though on McAfee's thing, that's just weird to me because he came on today and he announced it, and I never thought in my wildest dreams that Bill Belichick would have to resort to going on Pat McAfee, and that may just be kind of snooty of me because I don't, I think McAfee does a great show, but it's not my type of stuff. But it's extremely popular, and they do go NFL crazy. So maybe that's the perfect venue for him. And I think there's some rumors out there that he's going to join Omaha Productions and do something with Peyton Manning this year. But yeah, I can't wait for that. Like Boston Mike or whoever the fuck his, cronies are to just be like, hey, Bill, what do you think about this guy? Well, that's a great pick right there. I mean, that guy could be good in a 3-4, a 4-3, whatever he can do right there. Hey, I mean, so what the fuck happened with you and Robert Kraft? Huh? You mad because he was, were you mad that in the documentary they didn't show him getting handies or whatever? I don't want to get into that, guys. Come on.
All right. I took my chances, Bill. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to do my job here. I'm just trying to be a journalist. I'm on ESPN. I'm on the big network. I'm sorry. Let's clap it up for Bill. Good answer.
Yeah. Clap it up for me, guys. It's gonna be weird. It's gonna be weird, but I'm sure he'll do a fine job just evaluating players. The thing that came out today with Bill Belichick was Seth Wickersham's article in conjunction with who was the other guy? You know his name, Steven. The other guy that writes with Seth Wickersham?
Don Van Natta.
Don Van Natta. They wrote a very detailed article about why Belichick's going to get a job this offseason. Did you read this at all, Steven?
I only saw the headlines. I didn't read it.
So basically, the Atlanta Falcons job, while at first Bill was in contention for it, it basically came down to the other guys telling Arthur Blank he's not worth it. It's just he's not going to coach that long. And I guess the top three guys were Raheem Morris, Mike McDonald, and Bobby Slowick. And I guess Bill was cool with giving up power to the guys that were already there, Terry Fontenot and Rich McKay, the guys that run the Falcons already. But then they were worried that eventually he was going to his aura of being Bill Belichick was just too much, and eventually heads would roll. The big thing to come out of that article is that apparently Robert Kraft called Arthur Blank and said, "You don't want to do this. You don't want to hire him. I went through a bunch of bullshit my last few seasons with him. He tarnished his relationship with Brady and other players. He's not worth hiring." And the Patriots denied that was ever said. But if you watch the documentary of the Dynasty on Apple TV, I think that's probably accurate. And I think that while Robert Kraft denies I had no final say over the documentary, I thought that was totally negative. There's been a whole smear campaign by the Krafts to tarnish the name of Bill Belichick. And it sounds like Belichick has a potential, he could be in the running for the Cowboys job or the Eagles job if either job is available next season. That may happen. But yeah, I think that Robert Kraft, after, coveting Belichick for the longest time, if you watch the Two Bills documentary, he's all about, I wanted Bill. Bill was my guy. I wanted to give him full autonomy of the whole organization, to now being like, he's a real, jerk off or a real schmuck for what he did with Deflategate and all that stuff. Robert Kraft is trying, I think, his best to kind of make it seem like it was Brady and it was the Patriots organization, and the Patriot way of the negativity was all Bill's doing, and no one should put up with that anymore.
Robert Kraft has just come off looking like the absolute worst.
Yeah.
The worst. Anyone could see that the Dynasty was a hit piece. Anyone could see that after a few episodes, like making Bill Belichick out to be like Darth Vader of the New England Patriots. Meanwhile, freaking this article comes out, like, just what? Yeah, I didn't know what to make of it because I was just like, but I'm not surprised. Like, I'm not surprised he went out of his way to try to not get Belichick hired. Yes, he is too scared. He is too scared that Belichick, still lasting in the league, is going to do something with another franchise. And finally, that conversation, because right now you're fully leaning towards Tom Brady in that debate. Was it Belichick or Brady? Well, you probably lean Brady just because of what's happened with the Patriots over the past few years since his retirement, or even since he's been gone. But if he goes somewhere else and he has success elsewhere, I think he knew, like, hey, the Falcons are a pretty good team. Belichick goes over there, and what they've built, well, that's going to make me look bad. And so I'm going to, like, what happened? Like, when Belichick was shown on camera doing the walk of shame in what looked like some back alley of Southie in Boston, like, what was that? Like a family member of Kraft's or something? Like, what did he do?
Yeah, he looked like he was living in Whitey Bulger's old neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think that they would just wanted to, rid their or clean their hands of anything that Belichick had to do with the last few years. And it's crazy that teams could turn on fixtures in their organization for that long. So they did the right things. They were they sent him off and celebrated him, but I think they're doing shady shit behind closed doors to get rid of Belichick and go. Like, it was pretty clear when they hired Gerard Mayo. They were like, we want somebody that's going to be cordial to the media. That's a direct shot at Bill. So I think Bill's going to do a good job wherever he goes. I think he'll be very X's and O's oriented, and I can't wait to watch Saban on draft coverage. But they'll probably be boring for the average person. But I like when people get in depth about football shit, so I'll enjoy it.
All right. Well, enjoy.
I will, Steven. And you'll be too busy doing whatever on next Thursday.
Taskmaster.
You're really going to watch that over the draft. You have no desire what to see the Raiders going to do at 13?
I'll see what they do at 13 when it goes instantly to my phone. I've learned this since being in college and seeing the drafts in 2014 and 2015. I was in class during both of those drafts, and I was like, you know what? I don't need to watch this thing on TV anymore. I could just keep up with it live while I'm doing other things.
But you don't want to see Rich Eisen kind of just shit all over general managers' picks and think that he could, like, what are they doing there?
Doesn't really interest me. I don't know.
Nah, I mean, I get that part. You don't want to see, like, when they do the next day and the next day after, where they have like weird people doing selections. Like if like they're probably gonna do like picks from Brazil this year because the Eagles and Packers are going there. You don't like it when like the orangutan did the pick or they broke the chocolate ball in Ghirardelli Square?
Nope.
Well, neither do I. That's why I'm making fun of all that shit. But I do like the draft.
All right.
By the way, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I don't know there's any validity to any of this. Brandon Ayuk to the Steelers is getting a lot of traction online right now. And it's the same guy that said that he was going to do a trade demand, John Frusciella. There's a lot of Pittsburgh people saying that the Steelers are not taking no for an answer. They may give up the first round pick, 20th overall, to the Niners to get Brandon Ayuk. This may go down next week. I'm not holding my breath. I see it's out there, but I'm not going to acknowledge it until it actually happens. Well, I acknowledge it right now, but I'm not going to give it any credence until it actually happens.
I'm going to keep up with what I said last time. I think 49er fans have every right to be concerned about this. I really do. And if they decide to let him go, I think that'd be a huge mistake if they decide to trade him.
I agree.
Because you really want to let this connection that him and Purdy have, you really just want to let that go when you're about to give Purdy a long-term extension. Like, I think that'd be a horrible mistake. I know their quote unquote window is only going to be open for so long, just because a lot of these guys are getting older and the league's getting better and all that. But if you want to have anything to build around on that offense, by the time, say, Christian McCaffrey's contract is up, George Kittle's gone, Trent Williams has decided to call it a career, like, the two you want to hang your hat on is Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy. That is going to be your offense. So if they let him go, I think that'd be a huge mistake. And if you just think that you can find one in the first round, I understand how valuable picks are, but and you mentioned that this is a very, very talented draft class, but I don't think they should ruin a good thing. And what they got going with the Purdy and Ayuk right now is a very good thing.
I agree, and there's a way to pay Ayuk this offseason. You just have to think about the future and when you pay Purdy, and you may have to move somebody. But I think they should at least go all out this season one last time. But a first-round pick is a first-round pick. It could be enticing. They did pass up on a first-round pick last time, I believe, when the Jets offered 9th overall for Debo. So we shall see. Maybe Kyle values Debo more than Ayuk. And you brought this up. Let's not forget, Ayuk was in the doghouse at one point with Kyle. That was very early on in his career. But there could still be some harsh feelings. And I guess Ayuk just is not happy about his performance in the Super Bowl at all.
Yeah. Why should he be? Like, whenever he's talking about his value and saying that he's, the number 4 option on his team, yet still putting up the numbers that he's putting up, I think that's also kind of a subliminal shot at his team. Like, hey, I should be the number 1 option.
Yep. And if anybody could pay him, it could be the Pittsburgh Steelers, because they're not paying any of the quarterbacks. Russell Wilson's making 1.2 and Justin Fields is making, rookie minimum. So, yeah, we'll see. Things could get interesting. Lastly, the story that kind of fell under the radar today, just because of basketball being played the night before and today, Jonte Porter is now the Pete Rose of the NBA. He has been banned for life because of his affiliation with gambling or point shaving, whatever you want to say about it. He did something. He definitely, what was it exactly? He was placing wagers on his over-unders, or what was the exact thing, Steven?
That's what allegedly he did, but according to the NBA's press release, they put out everything. They put out all the dirty laundry. Number 1 was that he disclosed his health status to disclosed confidential health information to a sports bettor, and the bettor bet $88,000 on a prop bet involving Jonte Porter, and that $88,000 was bet that would have won him $1.1 million. And I don't know what the exact bet was, but Porter was supposed to, quote unquote, underperform. What's that?
Yeah, why did balloons just go off?
Why did balloons just pop up in my screen? What just happened? What the hell? What the hell just happened?
For the podcast audience, when Steven was talking in quotations, out of nowhere, cartoon balloons just popped up.
What the hell happened?
It just seems like a glitch. All right.
Oh well. Happy birthday.
Who knows what other crazy things will pop up now randomly when we do this thing?
So he bet on him to underperform, and supposedly he told the team after 3 minutes in the game he wasn't feeling well. So he just took himself out. And if that's not a sign that someone's betting $80,000, I think it was 88, but it might have been 80. If that wasn't a sign that someone's betting $80,000 on a prop bet on Jonte Porter, yeah, something's up. So I guess like the online sports book that they were betting through froze that bet, and that 1.1 million was never paid out. That was the first leg of this press release. Number 2 was he bet on 13 NBA games. He bet a total of $54,000, but really he only the only payout, the only profit that he made was like $20,000 or something like that. And one of those bets, this is my favorite part. This was part of the statement. One of those bets was it was a multi-game parlay bet. So I guess he bet on 3 different games. And one of them was for the Raptors, his own team, to lose. Well, the Raptors ended up winning. The Raptors ended up winning. And at the very end of that paragraph, the NBA, but all 3 bets lost. Period. That was my favorite part. And then they went on with like, you know, the statement from Adam Silver and how they don't tolerate this sort of thing and they're setting a precedent. But God, dude, it's just, I mean, you're Michael Porter Jr.'s brother. I mean, if you're
and I feel bad for him now because he will be asked about this and during playoff games.
Yeah, it was awkward. The last time he was asked about it, he was just like, I know my brother wouldn't do anything to jeopardize his NBA career, so I believe he didn't do it. But also, I mean, like,
you got to say
everything.
that, but
you also don't know everything that your brother's doing. Like,
no, of course not.
Like,
he's all the way in Toronto.
Yeah. So, God, I can't imagine what their conversations are like. Like,
this sounds
that's a huge thing.
This sounds so shabbily done because that is so painfully obvious.
Yeah.
$88,000. Yeah. That's no one knows who the fuck Jonte Porter was before this.
Yeah. He was playing with the Raptor 805s or whatever their team was called.
Good Lord. Yeah, I mean, you could say you feel bad for the guy, but like between that and intentionally tanking a game and then 13 NBA bets, I mean, shit, you know. You got to be made an example of. You can't be doing this stuff. I understand that there is a lot of hypocrisy now with, you know, gambling and sports and whatnot, but it's not going away. And athletes, you know, unfair or fair, whatever, you know, they can't be a part of it. They can't. Don't bet on your own sport.
That's the lesson. I think they did set a good precedent, though. Like, it's going to be a lifetime ban if you get messed up with this. I think that does scare some of these guys straight, so to speak. Like, I think if they did have any thoughts on this, like, ooh, a lifetime ban, this could get kind of dicey if I tell them, like, hey, take the under on my points that I got here. If my line's at 4.5, take the under. Like, I don't know if I should be doing that.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that Isaiah Rodgers, the guy that was betting actually on NFL games, the Indianapolis Colt, has not received a lifetime ban. I think he's just it's a indefinite suspension, and he has to prove himself to go back into the league. But the NBA is not fucking around with Jonte Porter, so
no,
can't really fault him for that.
It's not like he's making,
especially when it's stupidly done. Sorry,
it's not like he's making the league any money. He's just like, if anything, it's just the NBA is helping him. It's the question is what would happen if it was a player who helps the NBA? Like, that's where things would get interesting. Like, if it was actually a well-known player who people have heard of.
Yeah, I mean, baseball dodged a bullet with Ohtani, supposedly. But if it ever comes down to like a big name athlete that's been gambling, like Pete Rose, yeah, this could shake up sports.
I wish I was the first one to think of the joke, but yeah, someone did say that Porter should have used his interpreter to become the fall guy.
Yeah, he speaks Canadian. That's what he needs.
Yeah,
or French.
Canadian.
Yeah, French. Yeah, there you go. All right, Steven, that's all I got for tonight. Anything else?
What?
Stop rubbing your mic. What are you doing?
Sorry, it's like it's trying to squares it off here.
Oh my God, you're Matt Steinmetz.
Yeah, a little bit.
You ever eat a souffle, Guru?
Yeah, it's like a nervous tick. What, Jesse? What? Never mind. All right, no, I got nothing else.
Okay, we'll be back on Sunday. And it's draft time, Steven. Whether you care or not, we're going balls to the wall draft, baby. Because what else is going on?
Baseball.
I mean, NBA playoffs.
Baseball.
All right, fine. We'll definitely get into Blake Snell versus Jordan Montgomery from Friday's pitching duel.
I'll be there.
I'll be there too.
Will you?
Yeah, it's going to be in the public house. Or not public house anymore. Social 58. Social 58, Steven.
Oh, all right.
Come by. Say hi to me, Copes, and Tom. And maybe Dave Fleming. All right.
Will do.
Until then, we'll see you guys on Sunday when I break down the offensive lineman in this draft. Oh, yeah. Steven's aroused.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
All right. Thanks to Otis Bird. I forgot your last time, Otis Bird. Otis Bird is the word. Rock a new era. Etch a sketch. Guess you're Steven's buddy. Danny Golding TV. What's up, man? Ernie One. AJ Cruz. Tacky, that son of a bitch. Boof Busters, who I think is one of the Ernies, just a parody account or another account. Who else is in this goddamn thing? Nathaniel Richards. I cover everybody?
Yeah.
Everybody, Steven? All right. Got y'all. We'll see you next time. Steven, say what you always say.
Jesse, you're right here. We got you. Just your opinion. It's just our opinion, man.